Good afternoon. This is Chris Hale, CEO of VIQTORY. I welcome you in joining me as I sit down for a few minutes with the Chief Veterans Experience Officer at the VA, Dr. Lynda Davis. Dr. Davis is one of our own, a former Army Signal Corps officer, former VA healthcare clinician, former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Navy Personnel. She has led a storied career in both government, nonprofit, and the private sector. Prior to VA, also Deputy Secretary of Defense for Military, Community, and Family Policy. Really great work there, supporting military spouses and military families. As a small business owner and in higher ed faculty positions, as well as the executive director at TAPS and MVCN. You hold a PhD from the University of Southern California, a master's degree from Cal State Northridge, and a bachelor's degree from UC Santa Barbara, where I went on a volleyball trip when I was at the Naval Academy and almost went UA. I'm like, what am I missing here? This place is fantastic. You were one of the early folks at the VA Experience Officer, and you've been appointed by President Trump to serve a second term in that role. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be with you today. And all of your listeners, you've got a tremendous audience, and we appreciate the fact that you're reaching out to all the veterans to help us get our message out.
Yes, ma'am. And speaking of which, I want to talk about what a great job that the VA Experience Office is doing with that. So can you tell us what prompted the creation of the Veterans Experience Office, and in your first term, where did you take that?
The unfortunate incident in 2014 at the Phoenix VA Medical Center and the backlog and the scheduling challenges really was a wake-up call for the VA that something needed to change in the way that we did business in supporting our veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. And out of that, the secretary at the time, Bob McDonald, brought to bear some of the experience he had in the private sector with customer service. Really, how do we really address and make the VA more customer-centric focused? And he initially brought in some of the tools that were used in the private sector, hotels we use, other insurance companies that we might all belong to as veterans, different things like that, to try to improve the way VA looked at customer service. Right. That was in its infancy when President Trump's first term occurred, and I had the honor of taking over as the chief of that office. It was really the first effort in the whole entire federal government to look at CX, as we call it, CX meaning customer experience. And I had an incredible team, and we went to work not just borrowing and transplanting what worked in the private sector after you get your automobile fixed or you get your hotel room, but how does that work in government? And with a bureaucracy of employees and also with a very diverse customer population who oftentimes don't even understand the services they're getting or have never been asked to offer their voice in how those services are delivered, how they're prepared, how we evaluate them and improve them. So we looked at data, tools, technology, and engagement from the private sector, what worked, and how we could adapt it to government. And I'm thrilled because of the response we were able to get, the team we've created, which most of them are still here with me today as I've come back for my second term.
Outstanding.
They're nowhere else I wanted to be. They're here, they're engaged. We've continued to do more, and so it's an office that ended up really leading whole of government, the perspective and implementation of customer experience across the government to implement the president's management agenda in the first term, and now we're going to do it again.
That is outstanding. It's the measurement of that stuff, and I think it's you treat the veterans as customers. That's what they are. They're customers. And what is that experience like? That Veterans Trust metric, which was implemented, I believe, in your first term in this role, stood at 55% in 2016. 4 years later, it rose to 80%. That's a staggering. That's a 50% improvement overall. What led to that improvement in that trust metric?
We measure trust with an overall metric that's quarterly reported to the government and the public sector. And then we also measure daily the experience veterans have in different, what we call lines of business, outpatient services, pharmacy, benefits. And so all of that data is used to help us understand what our customer, the veteran, family, caregiver, or survivor, what they need, what they want, how they want it, so that we can design with them, together with them, before we start a program, asking them what would work for you, what would be easiest for you. We have metrics in that trust that go behind it: ease, effectiveness, emotional resonance. We also measure those in our individual scores for hospitals, for regional offices under benefits. And so understanding what they want, we can then turn that into the production and creation of programs and constant program improvements. So to ask what was it that led to the increase in trust scores, it's 1,000 different little things. Of course, one of the big things was the president at the time, President Trump, responded to the veterans' request, major request: we want to get care closer to where we live, and we don't want to wait as long. So there was a response with the Mission Act that if you're within a certain distance, and if you have to wait longer for a specialist, etc., we'll work with you and we'll we'll support you getting your services in the community closest to you. And the VHA has done a very good job of that, and they're now looking at how to even further improve that. So that began to be a trust builder. You said you would commit to this. You heard us say that we wanted that, and we kept the promise. We did numerous things when we listen to the voice of the veteran, we hear things like, it was an incredible challenge to navigate, let's say, just navigating a VA medical center, not let alone the whole, all of the benefits and services there are. But the hospitals, especially if you're coming in in a wheelchair, you have ambulatory problems, or you're a caregiver coming in and you're not familiar with a maybe somewhat military culture. So navigation, literal navigation. How do I get from here to there, from this office? What is benefits? What do I have to do in my applications? So we created the Red Coat program. Literally, veterans as volunteers or sometimes paid staff, they wear a red coat. They're there to greet, to help you find your way in the hospitals, to make sure that you feel warm and welcome, and that whatever you need, you get to the right person and have the response that you needed. That was a big improvement in the hospitals in addressing the veteran need for navigation assistance. We did numerous things in the hospitals. We had programs that the physicians co-designed with the rest of their teams and the veteran caregivers. Commit to sit. When you're talking to me as your patient, sit down, look me in the eye, listen to me, understand. Then we created forms for both of them around that were simpler, easier to understand. Of course, you know we've done a lot on the electronic health records and making it easier for everybody. We did white glove and green glove services. During COVID, we asked everyone, how would you like to be contacted? If you've got a medical appointment, or you have an appointment for your benefits ratings. We gave them options. We had chats, we had emails, we had texts. We had numerous ways that we reached out to people based on the preference. It's not one size fits all. All of our veterans enrolled, plus 9 million, they're all different and unique, and we want to make sure, to the extent possible, we offer them the best way to reach and interact with us. I'll mention one more, that we kept the president's, in his first term, his promise had been, I want a veterans hotline. We did that and implemented that with my team in the first 100 days. And then we turned that to a permanent structure. We improved it. So now we have My VA 411, one line to call to get everywhere, including if you're in crisis, you call that line and it directly does a warm handoff to the veteran crisis line. So whether it's communications, whether it's understanding a form, whether it's using the ability to self-direct, I want an app, I want telemedicine. We work with our survivor community to simplify the forms that they have to use and fill out to get their benefits, especially at the most difficult time when they're grieving. So we'll work across the board with every single administration, every office. We also work with our employees because we understand ease, effectiveness. A lot of that can be done with technology. Emotional resonance is the human interaction. And we need to recognize the value that our employees provide. They're essential. We can't do that without them. And we need to train them when they need it on, maybe some of them weren't veterans like us. Maybe they need military cultural competence so they feel comfortable. Maybe they have to understand how to interact and even nomenclature. We need to equip them with the data and tools so that they can respond right away and not be burdened with a stream of paperwork or cumbersome regulations when we can get those out of the way and get our employees able to talk directly. That's why they come to work.
Yeah.
As was said, this is a mission for all of us who are here. It's not just a job. For most of us, it's a continuation of our own military service, or we're honoring someone in our family who served. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
It's the best mission, so we all have to work together to get it done.
It's amazing when you ask for feedback from the patient, from the customer, what you get.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be able to implement that.
It
and when
is.
you, at an organization of 470,000 people, what are some of the ways that you change, that change management is so critical and so important, and that's the role of the leader. So when that feedback comes, what were some of the challenges and how did you overcome those in terms of the implementation?
First of all, I've been fortunate in both instances of my time at the VA, in these roles, to work for a president that has a commitment to the veteran community. Secondly, to especially right now, as he said, veterans are number one for our secretary, our deputy, the whole rest of the team. So I don't need to fight upstream. Earlier on in the first term, it was trying to help everyone understand customer experience. I don't want to be a customer. I'm not a customer. I'm a veteran. I earn this. I deserve this. But we're going to give you all the benefits easier, quicker, faster, the way you want it, if I can understand you also as an honored customer.
Right.
So this time, implementing, we've got everybody on board. For instance, the Code of Federal Regulations, we changed that during the first term, and we hardwired customer experience and the I care values into every single thing we do at the VA. There is nothing that can be done, no employee that can be here without agreeing to abide by those Code of Federal Regulations. So that's half of the battle. And we broadened the focus, understanding that it's not just the veteran who serves in uniform with the family. But when they leave, and when they are in veteran status, they're still supported by family, often caregivers, and then they're survived by loved ones. So we broadened our aperture of who we were serving, and we've got an enormous amount of data tools technology now, hardwire. The surveys I mentioned, those are automatic now. We have over 160 of them. And we regularly survey in each of these different lines of business, how did you feel? How was your experience? We leave an opportunity for you to give an open-ended comment. We get concerns, we get recommendations, we get compliments. 70% of the information we get are compliments.
Wow.
And that's fed back to the employees. You think you don't feel really good about getting that?
That's great.
You know, that's a boost. And we get their recommendations and know how to make changes. But we have the support we need. We have, we are integrating our call centers across the department. There's way too many to even identify anymore. We're integrating that work through our lead, My VA 411 call center, which is 24/7. We have like a knowledge management library in there for our agents to know what's the right answer, and that's shared then across the entire department. We're doing data analytics regularly, very sophisticated. We work with our IT shop. We develop apps based on what the veterans say that they want. So it's an exciting time to like take it to the next level. It's our moonshot, I guess.
That's great. The 70% figure is incredible, because normally when you ask for the feedback, people are more motivated to tell you about the things that didn't go so right.
Right.
That's really remarkable. I know your trust metric, Stan, has stood around that 75 to 80% consistently, that quarterly number. Are you satisfied? I think that number is at 79 or 80% today, which is roughly where it was 4 years ago. Where do you want to take that, or is it good where it is? I mean, it's exceptional where it is.
We'll never be satisfied until we can assure that we are listening and responding as soon as we can, as thoroughly as we can, and as respectfully as we can to all of our veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors. So that trust score, it's nice it's increased. I want it to go higher, but I want to earn that going higher,
right.
and ensure that it's deserved. So we're going to continue to do those surveys as we electronic health record. As we're changing, modifying, improving that, we're going to be listening to what works and doesn't work with the veteran community, so that the trust in that particular area can be high and higher and highest. And we'll do that for every area now that we know that needs to get examined. We're implementing, for instance, the Elizabeth, euphemistically shortened to the Elizabeth Dole Act. It has a lot of improvements for survivors and caregivers and others. And in that, before we even start in the implementation, we're asking, how many forms do you need? Is it understandable when we use this acronym? If we do this right in implementing a major bill like this, as we did with the Mission Act or the PACT Act, then veterans, caregivers, family survivors will understand that they have a seat at the table and that they can trust us. And what we do with the information that we get, one of the ways is to build the trust, is we use that information for two purposes. We use it for program improvement. You know, we aggregate everything and we understand that, you know, this trust score has dipped, and why is that at this hospital? Well, something else happened. Oh, well, that was during the flood. And during that quarter period, those 3 months, people could not get to the hospital. They were more consumed with other concerns that were going on, their housing. So there may be reasons behind it, or that tells us that we have to make sure if you're coming in for a health appointment during a crisis, we need to also ask you about food security, financial aid, housing. So, but in the Dole Act, we're really digging down as a major piece of implementation and co-designing with our customer. So we can look at program improvement. But then the part I really like is, as a clinician and kind of a one-on-one, bias that I have also, is we can see that a person leaves a open-ended comment. I couldn't get my prescription filled because of X. We can reach out to that veteran, and we do reach out. And we say, I see on Tuesday when you were here, you couldn't get your prescription filled. How can we help you? What do we need to do to get it to you?
Yeah.
So we use that information to really deliver the care benefits and memorial services in the way that they want it, and the trust scores will go up.
To take that very specific narrative and feed that back to them that's phenomenal feedback. Deputy Secretary Lawrence, Secretary Collins have both said one of the opportunities is to have a better working relationship between DoD and the transition and the handoff from active duty or from reserve duty into the VA system. You are a senior executive leadership at both of those, right? So what are some ways that you think that can be done?
I did have the opportunity and the honor to serve several roles at DoD in a prior administration, and both the reform of care for wounded, ill, and injured, our Navy personnel, and also looking at the military community family policy and what we did for families, including families overseas and families with particular needs, like special needs children. All of that gave me a picture of, again, the customer needs while they're in service, on installations, or living off, while there's deployments, the cumulative impact that all has. In uniform, I was separated from my husband, my children at different times. Thankfully not for long extended, not for years, but there were separations and there were challenges, and then seeing the wounds, ill, and injury, understanding the impact that has when you get ready to transition. And so being prepared to understand, as we say, fraternal twins or the left and right side of the river, how we work as a team to prepare ourselves to hand off and to receive the veteran, family, caregiver, and survivor, however that's defined by the veteran. And things like ensuring the veteran and the family know 18 months out, here's what you might be eligible for. Here's what you can expect. Can we help you get ready to pre-enroll, early enroll in VA services? Who in the family wants to go to college? Can we help you prepare for that and plan ahead? What about housing that you might be eligible for? We just had the other day an event in near Augusta, Georgia, where we go out into communities as part of our work in my office.
That's a nice
it's
community.
Not just data, tools, technology, but it's engagement. We get grassroots, boots on the ground. We go out to small groups and to thousands. We had a woman who came and brought her veteran husband there, and she had no idea that she was eligible for caregiver benefits. And she left there in tears, understanding for the first time that maybe she could get respite care, that maybe there was a stipend for her. She was 24/7 with her husband, which she was trying to do her best. It was hard. And so now she knew and understood, we need to make sure that those who are transitioning, that those who come with a caregiver to the VA understand in advance what services they and their caregiver can get. So they're not suddenly released from a hospital and back at home, and that home has not been retrofitted. They don't know how they're going to get transportation. They don't understand how they're going to get help. They don't understand where they're going to get their health care. That's where somebody like a red coat is really helpful. But we need in transition, and our greatest challenge in transition gets to another priority for the president, the secretary, and myself. It's transition, suicide prevention, and homelessness. Because in the first 18 months, if you don't get it right in supporting people as they need to, and making sure they're not isolated, helping them with their goals and their vision, employment like you have done so much with, they're at greater risk for suicide. Our women and veterans do not enroll in VA at the highest rates they should. They're at greater risk for suicide when they don't enroll and aren't affiliated with the VA. So transition is key. It also helps prevent homelessness. Homelessness can occur at any point in a veteran's life, but there's a high risk at that first point of leaving military service.
Yep. You lose that sense of identity, the uniform, the rank, the structure, and it all just goes away.
Absolutely.
And the VA is there to catch them, but it's that transition that's so important. Last couple of things I want to get to you, Dr. Davis, with regard to some of the things, the communication a lot of veterans see, the newsletter, the videos, right? Talking about the different, here's 20% and this is what you're entitled to across the spectrum. There's so many benefits. It's so hard to communicate it. Very few people know all of it. And the VEO does a lot of that communication. Talk about some of the mechanisms and the success stories about getting the information out there.
Well, when I said I have an incredible team, I do. And our comms team, I won't name him by name or he'd be embarrassed, but we have an incredible team who's been given the chance to have the opportunity to dream of and listen to, based on what we've heard, how can we talk to veterans of all eras, all service affiliations, all genders, and both genders, and any particular preferences or needs they may, rural, urban, persons of color, our veterans who are fully employed and doing fine, and those who are not. We reach the needs of the veteran through several different communications vehicles. We have the VA News, VetResources. Every Wednesday night, we touch 20 million veterans, and we have a tremendous click-through and open rate. We have articles on everything I think I mentioned to you, from drones to pain management for sciatica, a wide range of things, how to get your benefits. We have video interactions with Q&As where you can ask VA and you'll get a response. We have our community outreach. We have numerous ways. My office has a network of over 800 partners in the nonprofit, VSO, MSO space that we work with, because we know we can't do this alone. So when we communicate through many of our tools, then it's able to be passed down. So a veteran service officer, a state director, a governor, a pastor, anyone can use the news we have and share that to help make sure veterans understand, oh, there is a My VA 411 I can call if I have any question about VA benefits, care, or memorial services. So little things, but we do a great job, and we love comms.
It really is. It's great. We'll wrap up here, but our company really does a lot to connect the military community to civilian opportunity, right? A lot of professional opportunities. And we do that under the premise that we believe that veterans are better off for their service, right? The leadership, the teamwork, the discipline, all that stuff. It is amazing talking to the leadership here at the VA. All three of you are emblematic of that. You're better off for the service, and just thank you for being such a great example of a military alumni, if you will, right, of a veteran. I've asked Deputy Secretary Lawrence and Secretary Collins about what Memorial Day means to them. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We're 6 months out, but how would you recommend to the American public that they recognize Veterans Day when that comes about?
Well, looking forward, and thank you very much for making that distinction and allowing them to speak up, which I think they did so clearly, that there is a difference between Memorial Day. And as a veteran survivor, surviving many veterans, it matters that we recognize that on Memorial Day as distinct from Veterans Day.
Right.
On Veterans Day, it is a day to express gratitude. It is a day to express appreciation. It is a day to ask in my community, how can I better understand the ethos of service that someone in uniform embodies? Now, that person may be sitting in the church pew and 80 years old, or that person may be home on leave and be struggling to get reconnected with their friends in the community. Ask and think through, who do I know who has served? What can I do myself? The warrior ethos of serving other people, it's what we do because of the values that we all hold in common as citizens of the United States. We're proud to be here. That is something we can all look at, ways in which I can express that. And for me, it comes down to just being connected to another human being. Do your buddy checks, reach out, make sure anybody you served with, you're connected to them, that they're not alone, and also that you have a chance to ask veterans about their experience in service. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. Some people should. And so give them a chance. Tell me what was most important to you. Tell me what was the one thing that you remembered that you took away from it. How did your time in your military service benefit you for the job that you're doing now? What can I learn from that, even if I myself can't serve in uniform? So ask, be engaged, be respectful, and thanks. Give thanks as you're eating that hot dog.
That's right. Dr. Lynda Davis, can't thank you enough. I know you're so busy. Congratulations on all your successes, and I say that on behalf of all of our veteran and military community listeners and readers and viewers. It's great knowing that we've got sound, solid leadership at the helm of the VA at many, many levels. Thank you so much.
Well, we don't do this alone. We didn't serve alone then, and we're not serving alone now. It's not about me, It's about either the country or the people we're serving.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's an honor.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.